is a favorite dessert on Thanksgiving, but one slice can pack up to 750 calories and loads of fat and sugar. Joining us now is nutritionist Dr. Laura Christoff with tips on how we can strip some of the fat and sugar without sacrificing flavor, which is what we all want. Dr. Christoff, thanks so much for being here. We're making a healthier version of pumpkin pie.
Yes, we are. So there are a couple of different options that I thought of when I thought of healthier version of pumpkin pie. The first one is our finished pumpkin pie over here. That's a crustless pumpkin pie. We're going to use that recipe today, but I'm also going to teach you how to make a little bit healthier twist on a crust, which is a whole grain graham cracker and walnut crust. So we'll be using that today for our pumpkin pie.
So depending on what you like, but really the best part of the pumpkin pie is the pumpkin part. So
I agree.
If you can avoid all those carbs, that's great.
Yeah,
Great
exactly.
So let's start with the filling?
Yeah, we'll start with the crust.
Okay.
We'll put the crust in and then the filling. So this is just a pre-mixed half cup of walnuts, 1 cup of whole wheat graham cracker crumbs, and we're just gonna mix that with 2 tablespoons of oil over here.
Okay, just with a fork?
Yep, and 1 egg white. All right, so just go ahead and mix those around.
Okay. So that's relatively healthy. It's pretty much just some nuts, which are good for you, walnuts, which are good for you. And some...
Walnuts have, they do have a lot of fat in them, but they're omega-3 fatty acids, which we don't tend to get enough of in our diet. That's why everyone is taking fish oil pills and things like that. So if you can get it in a pie crust, it's pretty awesome.
That's true. Yeah, I know. Usually you have to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to in this case. Okay, so mix that together and then put it right in the bottom?
Dump it right in the bottom.
All right. Easy. And you said just the egg whites?
Yep, just 1 egg white.
Oh, just 1 egg white?
Just 1 egg white.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty simple.
And then just use the fork to...
Yeah, use the fork to just pat it down. With pumpkin pie, you can kind of leave it all on the bottom, a little bit more like a cheesecake.
Right.
Whereas with something like, an apple pie or something, you'd probably want to fill it up a little bit more. So we'll just mix that around on the bottom so we have a little base for our pumpkin pie over here.
Oh, it smells like pie crust.
And now we'll go to the filling. So pumpkin pie filling actually isn't too bad. So all we have here are pumpkin, evaporated milk, 2 eggs, a ½ cup of brown sugar, some pumpkin pie spice, and some optional vanilla. I always like putting in a little bit of vanilla.
Me too. It always tastes good with that in it.
Yep, so we're gonna pour the eggs into the bowl first.
Okay.
Along with the ½ cup of brown sugar.
And is this a particular kind of brown? It looks a little bit more sparkly than regular brown sugar.
Yeah, it's organic, so it just has a little bit of a different texture.
Yeah.
But it's just light brown sugar. You could use dark brown if you like a little bit more of a molasses type taste. And so then we're just gonna mix that around a little bit. And then we add 1½ cups of evaporated milk, so that whole can.
1 whole can, okay. And how is this for you, evaporated milk?
Yeah, evaporated milk's not bad. It's a little bit denser than regular milk, but there's no added sugar usually. The sweetened condensed milk is asked for in some pumpkin pie recipes, and that's the kind that is, really cream and sugar.
Yeah.
And then we're just gonna add 1 can of pumpkin. So a whole can of pumpkin. And a cool thing about pumpkin, when you just have the pumpkin, you get in a ½ cup, which is, about 1/4 of this, you get about 3 times your daily need for vitamin A, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's always nice when you can eat something that tastes like it's bad for you, but you don't have to feel so bad about it.
Right, exactly. And then we're just gonna add a little bit of pumpkin pie spice, just about a teaspoon. I always add a little bit more because I like mine spicy.
So you got a can of pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling.
Yep, not pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin pie filling has added sugar in it, and there's more sugar in there than this recipe calls for. Right. So that's why we just went for the pumpkin and then went for the filling in terms of the ½ cup of brown sugar, because there's a little bit less sugar that way.
Now, Dr. Christoff, if people normally make pumpkin pie and then they see your recipe, is it worth jumping to the healthier version? What is the difference calorie-wise?
Yeah, so calorie-wise, if you're saving a lot on the crust especially, so 1 serving of crust could pack almost 20 grams of fat and 300 calories or so, so you're saving all of that. Plus, when you're having the pumpkin versus the regular sugar versus the canned pumpkin pie filling, you end up getting a lot less sugar, so about half the sugar. So you cut the sugar in half, you cut the fat in about 1/4 of what was there originally, and you still get, a fantastic tasting pumpkin pie.
Wow. Well then, this is gonna have to be added to my recipe book. Now, once you've mixed all that together, you pour
just pour it right in, and we're just gonna put it in the oven at 350 for 40 minutes.
Okay. Very nice. So we'll do that. We'll put it in the oven, and then once
we'll
it's
take
done?
it out and get ready to have some pumpkin pie after you cool it for about 10 minutes
and
or
I see you
so.
garnished it with some walnuts too.
Yeah, and that's optional. You know, if you want to garnish it with walnuts or want to garnish it with pecans or something like that, that's great. I chose walnuts today since we were prepping a walnut crust, so I went with the same flavors.
And since it's a little bit healthier, then maybe you can afford to put a little bit of whipped cream on there.
Oh yeah,
Which
definitely.
I can't live without. Well, thanks so much. We'll be back with you to make another healthy pie, a healthy apple pie that's diabetic friendly. Stay tuned. We are back in the kitchen with nutritionist Dr. Laura Christoph, and earlier we made some healthy pumpkin pie, which I cannot wait to dig into. And now we're going to make a pie that's not only healthy and delicious, it's also diabetic friendly. It's a healthy apple pie.
So with diabetes, what we really want to focus on is decreasing the glycemic index of a product. What that means is we want to make it take more time for our blood sugar to raise after eating. So with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, for both of those, that's really helpful, so you don't have big spikes in blood sugar and have to worry about the insulin response. So what we're going to do here is we're going to eliminate all added sugars, and we're going to increase the fiber by making the crust whole wheat. And because we've been talking about limiting crust, I made our apple pie bottomless today. You could also make it topless, risque apple pie. So we're going to make it bottomless today because it comes out a little prettier. You know, you can still cut a piece and you have the top of the pie.
That's true, right, exactly. But you're just getting half the crust.
Right.
This pumpkin pie, by the way, it's healthy and it tastes amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
It's so yummy. I don't even feel bad about it.
Awesome.
And also November is National Diabetes Awareness Month, so it's a good time to talk about this and to give people some options, especially around this time of year when there's so many different treats to dig into.
Right, definitely. So this time, you know, you can have your pie if you're focusing on your sugar intake, you know, whether it be for a reason of diabetes or whether it's just that you want to limit added sugar. You know, as I have mentioned on this show before, it's recommended that we get less than 100 calories of added sugars each day. And with this recipe, you get 0 added sugars. So it's pretty exciting.
And it's amazing how little you have to eat for that to happen.
I know.
Which is sad. But this is a great recipe. So what's the first step?
Okay, so the first step is I have very large apples today because it's such a great apple season this year. So it only took me about 5 apples to make 6 cups of apple slices here. So I have 6 cups of apple slices mixed with 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then 2/3 of a cup of apple juice concentrate. So apple juice concentrate, you know, is apple juice, but a lot of people have orange juice concentrate at their house or used to. It comes frozen typically, and you add water to it. So it's a little bit sweeter, but it's all 100% apple juice, so you have no added sugars there.
No added, right. It has the natural sugars, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the apple taste, you have to go with that still.
Right.
Now, what kind of apples do you use for this?
So I use a little bit sweeter apples than typical. You know, if I were to make a traditional apple pie, I might use Cortland apples or Granny Smiths. These are Macoons, and they're a little bit sweeter, and they're typically, you know, eating apples, not cooking apples. But because we limited the sugar so much, having a little bit of extra sugar from the natural sugar in the apples is helpful.
Right, because you still want to have that sweetness.
Right,
so you get it
exactly.
naturally. All right, so then once you mix all that together with the spices, what's the next step?
Okay, so the next step, I have another 1/3 of a cup of apple juice concentrate, so it's a full cup total of apple juice concentrate mixed with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and that's to thicken the apple mixture a little bit and help it stick together. So in a traditional apple pie, often we use something like butter to do that, so the butter and the sugar make it stick together, so this lowers the fat a little bit as well.
Good.
So we're just gonna pour that over and mix it around a bit.
Lower fat, lower sugar.
Yeah, exactly. And then after we mix that around a bit, we're just going to either, you know, you could put a crust on the bottom, or as I said, on this pie, we're making it bottomless. And so then we're just gonna pour our mixture into our pie crust here.
And this will probably make more than one pie.
You know, this with this small little 9-inch pie plate, I could probably make 1.5 here. So we're just gonna pour the mixture in as much as possible, and then I have here a whole wheat pastry crust over on the side. And so with this whole wheat pastry crust, you know, some people don't love the texture because, you know, the reason, you know, refined or enriched flour was developed was due to texture, right? It makes things a little bit less grainy, right?
Right. We're going to move that right over here.
Okay, sure.
Right, right, exactly. So, which is what you don't really want when you have that nice pie crust. Is you want it to be flaky and crispy, golden brown.
Right.
But so sometimes you have to go with the healthier version.
Yeah, and the great thing about a whole grain pie crust is it also lowers the glycemic index. So anytime you have fiber in your crust or fiber in your diet in some way, you can lower the glycemic index, which, as I said, is helpful for diabetics when they're eating carbohydrate.
So it's whole grain.
It's whole grain, so it's 100% whole wheat. I used stone ground flour for this, so you know it hasn't really been processed very much at all. And I sort of wrap it around and tuck it in here, so you have a little bit less traditional pie crust, and it looks like a little bit more of a mound. But at the end, you know, after we bake this for about 40 minutes, the last 5 minutes, I add some pecans around and a couple of pecans in the middle to make it a little bit more decorative. If you wanted to add some either no sugar whipped cream or some whipped cream with alternative sweeteners in it or something, you could always put that around and on the top too and make it look a little prettier because it does look a little lumpy like this.
Right, you want to make it look cute, especially if it's for your holiday meal.
Exactly.
Too. And it's nice that people that don't have a choice, I mean, it's one thing if you want to eat healthier, but if you don't have a choice and you have to eat healthier and avoid those added sugars, it's nice that you have an option.
Right, exactly.
And this is a great one.
Yeah, and so for any chronic disease too, you know, when you say you don't have a choice and you have to eat healthier, for other things like heart disease patients or people who've had a stroke or even people who've had to deal with cancers and things like that, it's always a great idea to add some whole grains to the diet and add some fruit to the diet. And really, you know, all this is whole grains and fruit, but then, you know, with the crust, you do need some fat to make it stick together. So there is some butter in there too.
Oh, well, that's okay. I mean, a little bit is okay. Everything in moderation, right? So then you pop it in the oven, and this is the finished product right here. I can't wait to try it. Thank you so much, Dr. Christoph. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you for sharing these recipes with us. For a copy of these delicious pie recipes, you can head to our website later today. But for now, while I'm enjoying some delicious pie, thank you, I'm going to toss it over to Seth, who's